Bob, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And
we
we-
hear you.
Absolutely.
Just
So
like
before we start, Jerry, before we start, I'm going to ask Brianna to make us live so that we will be streaming live on the City of Yelm's YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I know once that I ask her to do that, it takes a second and we're live. So Jerry, if you would like to
Okay.
start the meeting, I'm going to bring up the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay, I call the meeting of
Can
the
you
Yelm
all-
Planning Commission to order at 4:04 on the 16th of February, 2021. Could I have a roll call of commissioners
Yes, Jerry Fugich,
present?
John Thompson,
Present.
Carlos Perez,
present.
Ann Warman,
Present.
Bob Howard,
Present.
Floyd Sheldon,
Here.
and do we have John Graver yet?
We
I haven't heard from John Graver yet. All right.
Okay, we'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
And to the
for
republic,
which it
for
for
stands,
which it stands, one nation,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
I would
Please give
approve.
your
We
name.
approve the agenda.
You beat me to
Okay.
it. I'll second it.
Okay, so Carlos approved it. John seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carried. You all have a copy of the minutes, at least you should, because they were sent out a few days ago. If you would review those, and I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, made by Bob Howard, approved by Carlos. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So the minutes are approved for the January 19th City Planning Commission meeting. Public comments or communications? Do we have any, Tammy?
Derek, pardon me for interrupting the meeting. Derek, are you able to see members or attendees who have hands up and wish to speak? And can you monitor that for me?
I have been monitoring. There was a Michael Edwards who had his hand raised, but has either disconnected or I'm not seeing him no longer listed as an attendee.
Okay, I thought I saw that before I shared my screen. So if you could just let me know, Derek, when a question comes in, if I need to be interrupted.
Okay.
I've not received any comment other than the information we've received regarding the rezone process. And I'll go into that when I go into the staff report and the analysis of the first rezone that we're looking at today.
There's a Michael Avila who has his hand raised. Should I go ahead and allow him to talk, to speak as well?
Sure. Or actually, Jerry, is that?
Just to know that John Graver has joined our meeting. And he's muted.
Sorry, I had to reboot my internet service.
So
Jerry, we do have a member of the audience that has raised their hand to speak. Would you like to allow?
Okay, let me, I don't see I've got two of them that no picture.
Yeah,
And I don't have all of them on at the same time, which is interesting.
I have, I see Michael Avila has his hand raised, and I've allowed him to speak if he wishes to. He may now.
Yeah, can you
Okay.
hear me? This is Mike Avila.
Mike.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
go ahead.
Tammy. I don't know when, if and when you'd like me to speak. I just, Tammy had emailed me this afternoon, kind of a last minute thing. We'd been speaking for some time about rezoning a couple parcels, and they were on the slideshow a few weeks ago. So Tammy, I guess you let me know if I need to or not, but just to let you know, I'm Mike Avila with Pacific Rim Real Estate Group. I represent the Gazzetti family on a couple parcels they own in Yelm, and they're seeking to rezone from C1 to R16.
Thank you, Mike. Jerry, if there's no other public that would speak, would you like me to step into the rezone request analysis?
Please do that.
Okay, well, in your package today was a very long staff report, and I'm sorry it appears a little bit dry, but what this process is doing the analysis and making sure that the rezone requests that are presented to you or requested by citizens to you, that the rezone meets the goals and policies of the comp plan, meets the goals and policies of the Growth Management Act, and also we need to review them for impacts to our public infrastructure and what it means to the city of Yelm if we do propose a change. We kind of went over the map at the last meeting in January. However, today we're just going to look at what I'm calling rezone 1 and 1A and my summary and analysis of that rezone. And please forgive me. My husband just arrived home and my dogs are going to go nuts for dinner, so I had to shut the door. Rezone 1 is a request by a citizen to rezone 20 acres in our commercial zone from commercial to residential. And that is this map right here. And I don't know if you can see it. It might be a little bit small, but it is located between Mountain View Road and Killian Road. It's north of Yelm Avenue West. And right now it's vacant land, 20 acres. When we first looked at possible rezones in this area and the fact that this was requested, I also in the map had a couple question marks on 2 parcels here to the east of this rezone, and this property is owned by Mr. Guzzetti. These are both 10-acre parcels and they're both zoned C1 commercial. And so in my analysis, or after I had done this analysis, I was contacted by Mike Avila, who's representing Mr. Guzzetti, and stating that he would be interested in having his properties rezoned to residential as well. So my rezone 1A here includes the 20 acres from the original request and also includes 10 acres to the east of that. So we're looking at a total of 30 acres to rezone from commercial to residential. And the reason that it looks this way is one of the first things to look at is looking at logical zoning boundaries. And like when we're reviewing annexation into the city, we want to make sure that we have logical boundaries that separate the county from the city, that makes nice and even logical our city boundaries. But also in zoning, you want to make sure that you have good logical boundaries as well. And since all of these properties along Yelm Avenue are zoned commercial, and all of these properties up here are zoned R6, the logical boundary would be to, if a rezone were to occur, would to be these 3 parcels. We want to it's very important to keep the commercial zoning on Yelm Avenue. That's our main highway through town, our main streets, and where most of the traveling public is. The parcel here, Mr. Guzzetti's, the reason I did not include that is because of the commercial zoning below it and the fact that there's a future street planned between Coates Road and Killian Road. And this public street would be able to serve both commercial development to the south and to the north. And it may actually provide negative impacts if you had a public street, the commercial on one side and the residential on the other. That was my analysis in looking at the logical boundaries. If you would prefer to look differently, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just presenting the analysis as I did it. So I'm not going to read this staff report word for word because it is kind of long and it is kind of dry. But when we're looking at the goals and policies of the Growth Management Act and the possible rezones in the city, we want to look first to see if there's any specific or special constraints or environmental issues that would be subject on these properties. And all of these properties right now are basically large fields. There's very few trees. There's more on Mr. Guzzetti's property on the east side than there is on the commercial property here. But there's no wetlands, there's no flood zones, there's no creeks or streams. It's really just plain pasture land. So there's really no environmental issues or constraints on the property. Just as a real, as a history, these properties were annexed into the city in 1992, and they were annexed in as agricultural land. Well, when the Growth Management Act came into effect in 1995 and we updated our zoning code and our zoning maps, these properties were converted to C1 commercial. And that's how their zoning occurred in 1995. And another item that I used in part of my analysis and research was a traffic impact analysis that was done by this property owner back in 2008 that looked at specific transportation impacts if this property were to develop as commercial property. It was very helpful for me to be able to use that data, that even though it's aged in 2008, I was able to use that data to help look at what the different impacts were for water, sewer, and streets in regards to commercial development as opposed to residential development. And I have that information available if you would like to see it. But the first thing that we need to do is go through the goals and policies of the Growth Management Act. And the Growth Management Act has 13 policies that we need to look at. We want to make sure that we encourage development in urban areas and not allow urban sprawl, as it's called. So we want to keep the density and the commercial developments within city limits in these urban areas where the cost of services and the cost to provide services to these areas are less than if it was out in the country. We want to make sure that when we're looking at the zoning and development of properties, that we're looking at transportation impacts from what will occur there. And so my analysis on here, on these goals and policies, like I said, I don't want to read it word for word, but we looked at encouraging development in our urban areas where adequate public facilities and services exist. So we know that this is in the commercial core, but it's not directly on Yelm Avenue. The property is close to services, including gas stations, restaurants, other retail, elementary, middle school, and high schools are close by. There's actually even a daycare close by. So residential development in this area, I do believe would meet the first goal for urban growth. And then reducing sprawls, keeping this development in the urban area helps reduce the urban sprawl and brings that density in that the Growth Management Act requires. Looking at transportation on all of these properties. And again, this analysis will go for either of the rezone scenarios that are suggested. So whether this rezone is just the 20 acres that was originally requested, or if we include the 10 acres to the east, I didn't find any separate issues to deal with. All of the goals and policies And the analysis I was able to do affected all of those parcels. So we know that Yelm Avenue West was recently improved with the Killian Road LID. It's improved to public standards, along with Killian Road is improved to city standards from Yelm Avenue all the way out to the loop. And Mountain View Road is being developed or is being improved right now with residential development. And if these properties were to develop, whether commercially or residentially, they would also be required to do those frontage improvements. So the streets are built for the type of traffic that would be generated by both the commercial and residential development. The housing element, we want to encourage the availability of affordable housing. So R6 zone would allow for single family and multifamily development, and also encourages a variety of housing types by allowing townhomes, duplexes, and other types of development. In regards to economic development, in looking at this, the proposed change would reduce commercial land within the city of Yelm by about 30 acres, more or less. And that's an approximate reduction of 8% overall of all the commercial land within the city of Yelm. It's fairly small. We did a retail trade study back in 2005 that showed our primary area of service, and then also an extended area of service that included all the way out to Eatonville, where I live, Graham, and even part of Spanaway. We don't have an updated study. We were kind of starting one, but COVID hit and things didn't move forward. So I don't know where we're at in the status of that. But in looking in the 2005 retail trade study, it showed that we had an equal amount of commercial land in response to the projected needs in the next 20 to 30 years. Knowing the growth that has occurred around me in the Graham and Spanaway area, and also the fact that times have changed and e-commerce is kind of the new thing, even before COVID, maybe the loss of 8% of commercial land is not going to have a great negative effect on the city of Yelm. So that's my analysis in that part. In regards to property rights, private property rights shall not be taken. This proposal does not require the taking of any public or any private property. In permits, we want to make sure that we have an open and transparent availability to review development permits. So the proposed comprehensive plan amendment or rezone are considered as part of the annual comprehensive plan amendment. It allows the public an opportunity to review our analysis and provide comment in upcoming public hearings and presentations to the Planning Commission and to City Council. We don't have any natural resource lands within the city limits. In regards to open space and recreation, the GMA policy, goal and policy is to retain open space and enhance recreational opportunities. So the site is not designated as open space or recreation. However, future development of future residential development would require an open space component as part of that development. So it would actually provide more open space and recreation than what would have been provided if it develops as commercial. Protecting the environment, the city of Yelm has a very strong critical areas code, as well as state requirement of SEPA. Any environmental issues would be reviewed under applicable land use development applications. Citizen participation and coordination, I've kind of already talked about this. This is open to the public. I apologize, I didn't get my public participation plan completed before this meeting. However, I have updated the city's website. So our comprehensive plan section has been updated with what we're reviewing. I'm working with our communication specialist to get our meetings posted on our Facebook page on the days of the meeting, and also we'll do some mailings, direct mailings to property owners that are within a certain distance of the properties that are affected, to make sure that they have the availability to comment both to the Planning Commission and to the City Council. We want to make sure that public facilities and services are available. The city provides sewer and water service. There's sewer lines and water lines in Yelm Avenue, on Killian Road, and Mountain View Road. They are sized in order to provide the appropriate fire flow and service to both residential and commercial development. I did check with our public works facilities, and they are sized appropriately either way it develops. So that, along with our new water rights that are anticipated to be here this year, then this would not create a negative impact toward the city's utility services, whether it be water, sewer, or even street. The properties are vacant. There's nothing listed in that there's any historic issues that we need to deal with. And then the other things that we need to do as part of this analysis is look at our own comprehensive plan goals and policies. And does this rezone meet these goals and policies for the city of Yelm? And so looking through that, the land use element goal 5 states we want to encourage diverse residential growth. We want to adopt development standards that allow duplexes, townhouses, and accessory dwelling units. As you know, we've done this last year. The Planning Commission worked really hard to provide opportunities and incentives to create this type of variety of housing. So we know that if it was changed to residential, we would meet that goal. Land use element goal 11 states to create safe and vibrant neighborhoods. And the supporting policy includes policy number 11.2, to plan for land use patterns that provide the most residents an array of basic services within a half mile or a 20-minute walk from home. So right now that area of town has started development, and then the recession has hit, and it's been a little bit slow, but all of a sudden, I know just personally by the amount of land use applications I've been receiving, that development is picking up and it's taking off. There's prime commercial corners and intersection just south of these properties. Right now there's medical facilities, there's daycare facilities, there's a restaurant, and there's also vacant land and actually building pad ready land to develop in this specific area. This would allow for those residents to be able to have less than a 20-minute walk from their home to these services. And then, of course, our housing elements, which, like I said, we went over them in depth last year when we updated our development guidelines to allow for the variety of housing. But this proposed residential zoning would allow for and encourage the variety of housing types. It increases housing amid our urban corridor. And like I said, medical facilities, restaurant, and childcare are all right nearby. The other item that we need to look at is to determine whether conditions in the area for which the comprehensive plan change or the rezone proposed, have they changed, or are they changing to such a degree that it's in the public interest to encourage a change in land use for the area. I believe that, as I kind of alluded to earlier, e-commerce is in. It has been for many years, and it's been growing actually exponentially since 2015. And we've realized just how much that means to us in our past year. So while we know the online retail sales is in existence, we also want to make sure that we still have the availability of land for brick and mortar retail. So again, looking at circumstances have changed, e-commerce is huge. Losing 8% of our commercial core or commercial land, is that an impact that we're willing to take? I already did kind of talk about our impacts to the city's water system. However, I did go into great detail in my analysis on the types of from our water system plan, how much commercial development depends on and uses water and the projected use for the area. And then I also looked at what the water use would be for residential in that projected area. So based on 30 acres, if it was developed commercially, could equal up to 315,000 square feet, which would, based on our water system plan, use approximately 42 million gallons per day, where 30 acres of residential would equal up to 180 dwelling units, which would use approximately 40,000 gallons per day. As we can see, the use is much less, and so the impact to the water system, it's less of an impact to our water system. The same goes for sewer. In our sewer system, the City of Yelm's reclaimed water system, we base our sewer rates, fees, and the amount of water that goes to our facility, our sewer reclamation facility, based on the amount of water somebody uses. Water comes in, water goes out into our sewer treatment plant. So knowing that there's less gallons per day of water for residential use, then we know that that's less gallons per day going to the city sewer system. And also, when we have commercial development, our system is, we need to be very careful of protecting the system from fats, oils, and greases, which we call fog. And so commercial development with any food preparation, starting from drive-through espresso stands, one of the worst for our system with the fats and oils in milk and coffee and so forth. You'd be kind of surprised. And other food preparation systems where those fats, oils, and greases can get into the system. If residential uses are in there as opposed to commercial, it would definitely lessen the impact or not create an impact to our sewer system. And then, oops, I'm sorry. In regards to transportation, we talked a little bit about the improvements to Killian Road, Yelm Avenue, and future improvements to Mountain View Road. We know that single-family residences create 1.01 new PM peak hour trips into our system, where a commercial development, without knowing exactly what's there, when you do a transportation review of what could happen, larger developments such as 20 or 30 acre commercial development kind of has an overall transportation number that's used, which is 2.66 new PM peak hour trips. That would create 837 trips into the system based on that 315,000 square feet that I used from the traffic impact analysis in 2008, where 180 residential units would only create 181 new PM peak hour trips. So again, less impact on the transportation system if this was residential. It does not create a negative impact to the transportation system. So after all that is said and done, what the Planning Commission needs to think about and keep in their mind as we move forward with this, and next month we'll do the same analysis for the industrial area rezone that's been requested. We need to determine, and the Planning Commission needs to determine, is the comprehensive map amendment or the rezone, is it consistent with the goals and policies of the State of Washington Growth Management Act? Is it consistent with our own City of Yelm comprehensive plan goals and policies? And then have we reviewed all the potential impacts of the change? Have all impacts been considered?
Question. Tammy, do you know what the daily water consumption is for the city of Yelm?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
The only reason I ask that is 42 million seems like a gigantic amount for 10 acres. Unless we are consuming like 100 million or more than that, 1 billion gallons a day, is that accurate, that 42 million gallons for a 10 acre commercial?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't 10 acre commercial. The numbers that I based my analysis on were numbers that were given in a transportation impact analysis on what the projected future growth would be for that area. The 20 acre parcel had 200 and some thousand square feet. So, and then if I included the other 10 acres, I took half of that, which gave me the 315,000 square feet. It's a projected amount of square footage that could happen if commercial development were to occur. And based on the water system plan, gallons per day is different than I know that a single family home uses 875 cubic feet per month. I don't know if Derek has off the top of his head what that is equals gallons per day. But again, it was based on a projected number and the total build out of 30 acres.
Yeah, maybe Derek could check and find out what our total daily gallons per day is for the city right now. I would assume we have that figure somewhere.
Well, there's also the different types of uses. You know, a restaurant is going to, or a restaurant's going to use more water than a single family home.
Oh,
A
sure.
laundromat is going to use more water than a restaurant. So you have to take into effect whether it's just an office building that uses less water, or is it a sit-down restaurant where it uses more water, and you average that out.
Oh, I understand the calculations. I'm just picturing 42 million gallons, which is about the size of a small lake per day. That's a lot of water, 42 million gallons. And and it may be accurate, but that seemed exceptionally high as a daily use. I can't even imagine the size of the pipes you'd need, 4-foot pipes to deliver that to it. So I'm just not sure on the size is all.
We will look into that.
Let's look into that out of curiosity's sakes. The engineer in me is just trying to calculate 42 million gallons.
Any
But
other
on a
questions?
scale, it would definitely be much greater than residential usage for sure.
Oh, understand, but
Yeah,
would it be
I agree.
10,000 times as
That's
much
a
or
lot of water.
25,000? That's the question.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah, 42 million is huge versus 40,000 for residential. That's just a
And
question.
Tammy, just to clarify, when we're talking about amendment, what we're talking about is this rezoning of this property from commercial to residential. Is that correct?
That's correct. The zoning of the property, when there's a request for a rezone, it's actually a comprehensive plan land use map amendment. And so I wanted to make sure that we're all clear that we're amending the comprehensive plan land use map. But I also try to keep in there that it's a rezone. We're looking at rezoning property, but it is an amendment to the comprehensive plan.
When do we re-review the comprehensive plan again?
I think in 2025, let me double check. I believe it's 2025 is our required 8-year update. I do know that we have plans for looking at our comp plan over the next couple of years in different areas, and possibly even in a year or two, looking to see it is changes from this unique year we've just experienced. Is it going to require or need for us to look at and change our comprehensive plan? Or are we going to find in a year or two that it may not have an effect and we may not need to make any changes? But I do believe that our Growth Management Act required update is in 2025.
One more point I'd like to bring up. In this analysis, do you also consider the tax base and what the impact is by changing from one zoning criteria to another?
That's an excellent question, Carlos, and no, I did not do that analysis.
Generally speaking, would you guess that it would be greater tax revenues coming into the city with commercial versus residential?
Commercial absolutely provides B&O tax that comes into the city that residential does not provide. Taking base property taxes out of there, there's the retail business and occupation tax that the city receives from commercial development. I would be happy to go into that a little further as we move forward this year.
Well, I would just think that it would be something you'd want to at least note, you know,
Okay.
because there's a penalty that the city will pay, but could possibly pay for changing the zoning to residential. But then again, that property would lay vacant, perhaps otherwise. So
Mhm.
there's a trade-off there, but I don't know that it'll make that much difference, but it would be nice, I guess, to just at least note it, you know? Make some kind of an assumption.
I will absolutely do that.
Are we open for discussion yet?
You
Yeah,
want,
I'm done. I'm taking questions from you.
oh, okay, John, go ahead.
I didn't have any questions. I did look at the information that was sent from Tammy before, and I'm glad Mr. Gazzetti did bring up his pieces. I didn't know who had them before, but those two pieces to the east are contiguous to already residential areas and set back off, the highway further than the 20 to the left. I look at that and go, wow, 30 acres. Yeah, that would be great. But I would go with the Gazzetti 210s and then the 110 to the west and keep and keep that one 20-acre piece close to, I remember correctly where it is here. Let's see. It's hard to see on yours. I have to pull mine back up again. But I was thinking that the 210s of Gazzetti and the 110 of the, and I don't know who it is who's trying to, I didn't see a name on the redevelopment, or I'm sorry, the rezone, but I would see that as one of the 10s to the left, and then the 210s of Gazzetti as being a much better residential fix than taking all of that commercial from, to the west, taking that commercial out. That 10-acre commercial, if you take your pointer over to the left a little, Tammy, a little more. And then that one straight up over to the right. Oop, no, that on your 20s. So you have the 20 there.
Okay, so John, this is a 10-acre piece. This is a 10-acre piece.
Yep.
This is 10 and this is 10.
Correct. And if you take a look at that 10, that's all the way to the, we're going to call it to the left. That right there, that touches onto, or almost touches onto 507 or 510. So that, I would say, has much more ability to be commercial than Mr. Gazzetti's piece that's southeast. Right, correct.
Oh, I see.
But that's my thinking.
So what you're looking at is more like a right angle.
Correct.
What's that property that's kind of brownish? Just that. What's that?
Those are zoned high density residential, and those are developed into multifamily housing. I believe it's senior subsidized housing here.
Yeah.
So that's developed as high density residential, and this actually, pardon me, this actually is Rosemont,
Oh, there's one.
and that's multifamily high density.
So that would raise a question of putting commercial property in front of Rosemont,
Yeah.
which may not be advantageous, even though it's close to 510.
Or it could be more advantageous if it was convenience that the people there, some of them are not, some can get around. It's No.
Yeah, but commercial property, it could be an auto parts store on 10 acres, which.
Well, that's true.
I mean, you can't dictate if you make it commercial, you can't say, well, it's commercial, but it just has to apply to senior citizens over 60. They're living in Roseland.
There you go, right here.
Hey, if they want people built in for them, that's what they want, you know?
Well, the other item I would like to bring up is that you could look at the rezone of this property not only being R6, but moving it up to high density, which is our 16 units per acre. It would certainly match the density that's below it and beside it. However, you would have high density residential apartments, probably uses which are adjacent to the R6, but it would also be right adjacent to commercial development. There's that option as well. I didn't take into account the number of trips or the amount of water that would use, but it certainly is a consideration. We have already, the C1 zone allows for multi-use, mixed use development, which is commercial and residential. We've had that zoning since 1995, and I know since I've been here 20 years ago, and I've only seen one application and one project that's moved forward with that, and they still have not filled completed the full build out of their commercial portion of that. So while mixed use development is great, it's not something that's taken off yet here in Yelm, but it certainly could. But you do have the option of looking at higher density residential if you wished.
What are the prospects? Why are they requesting this change? Is there something in the offing here that they're planning, or they're just thinking long range?
Derek, do we still have Mike Edwards in attendance?
Yes, we do. Would you like me to allow him to speak?
Would you, Jerry, would it be okay if the person requesting the rezone spoke?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I have Mike Edwards, and Joe Gazzetti also has his hand raised and is requested to speak.
Okay.
Is there a preference in the order, or?
I have
Jerry-
no preference in the order.
Derek, I would ask that Mike Edwards speak. He's the owner of the 20 acres and has requested the rezone initially.
Okay,
Okay.
so go ahead, Mike.
You're muted, Mike. Does Mike know he's muted?
Hey, Fred.
So am I audible with you all?
Yeah, now you are.
But you don't get my wonderful picture?
No,
Heaven forbid.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, we had requested this rezoning. But one thing about it with the commercial C1, following the major changes that we've all experienced with people shopping on the internet, there's very much of a change on how people do their shopping. The big box stores, of course, are phasing out. We've seen that die away. And so anyway, more attractive concentration. One of the things that we need to think about in Yelm is the higher utilization of our assets that are underground. You know, we got sewer, got water. We don't have economy of scale incorporated into the planning yet to the highest degree. And you see, it's difficult to ratchet your water rates, sewer rates down because you don't have the economies of scale. So I would I would just say that probably the best for the city, I would think, and it would fit with us, is to get that higher density of housing. One of the things that we've experienced is a greater demand for multifamily in other areas, and I think that'll be true and has been shown recently to be true in Yelm. One of the corrections I'd give listening in earlier, Rosemont is in a different spot, Tammy, on it's up on the front of that triangle, just by that. Look at your brown spots, your brown, yeah. Now just below that, that's Rosemont. Just so you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Rosemont fits in good. It's been a good neighbor. I don't think anything that we'll be doing in that area would upset their use or their quality of life. That was a project I put in about, time goes so fast, I can't tell anymore, what, 15, maybe 15 years ago. But I'd be happy to answer any of your questions that you might have. But I guess in total, I would, in summing, I would say the higher concentration of housing flexibility. A lot of people are going to want townhomes, apartments are good. These are all available in the C6 zoning. And the traffic impacts, I don't think would change. You'd get better utilization of your utilities and infrastructure, better, higher degree of leverage on your investments, getting a greater sharing of cost. One of the big downturns, as you know, in Yelm has been for residents that have been severely impacted by water fees. And as much as a city, I'd like to get those down to more reasonable levels. It's hard to do if you don't have the economies of scale. So greater concentration of residential would be beneficial. The fact that we've got residential close in to what is developing with our commercial in the front and across the street is good because it cuts down on traffic congestions, makes a lot of convenience. Now, where you're running that arrow, Tammy, right in there is the medical facility that we put in about 6 years ago. That's Yelm Medical Clinic. And then I put the bank in Olympia Federal up in front of that. And then we have 2 additional commercial pads. So we've got medical services really conveniently located by multi-family living proposed up in the new area. And also with Rosemont and also Killian Court, which is the brown spot there up above that you mentioned earlier, is subsidized housing, government subsidized housing. I think we put that in about 20 years ago. So anyway, all the infrastructure has been laid in that end of town. Fortunately, I think that was a $10 or $12 million project. Tammy, you were around at the time we put that deal together, and got the entire end of that town wired, plumbed, and complete with streets and sidewalks. So I think we're ready here to have something to consider that would be beneficial to the city by a zoning change. And we're still keeping that commercial up front for B&O taxation opportunities and getting away from the box store retail in the back that we had originally planned. I'd be happy to try to answer any of your questions. I don't want to go on forever, but I'm quite excited about our community and always have been. Enjoy the whole ambience of the town out there, and every day we're improving. We're right in the middle. Yelm is in the middle of the freeway for the growth that's coming down the pike, both from up north, Pierce County. We've had a lot of infill in the Olympia-Lacey area that's going to be driven out here. I think Yelm has got a lot of good opportunities, both for residential concentration and for commercial to balance the B&O taxes, taxation needs of the city. Again, I don't want to captivate the market. John Graver's always had to listen to me over the years, so we'll just keep it short as I can.
Can I say something? Actually, Mike did bring up something that I had not even thought of, and it's true with the internet servicing, especially with this pandemic and everybody going to that. Yeah, there is less and less commercial. And my hopes and dreams, of course, for Yelm is always to have a lot of nice retail and all the rest. But again, how much retail are you going to have, I guess? So I would throw my thinking that 1 square to the left, that 110 acres to the left remain commercial.
Yeah, I think you'll get a better utilization there, John, for the
Yeah.
city's benefit too. Well, you guys are really putting a lot of effort into this thing. It's good. Takes that, doesn't it, Tammy?
How long would it take to start building out these properties? I mean,
You know, I'm starting to get inquiries that would like to come in there. You know, we've had the housing just north of the properties we're talking about, the 118 lots, the Hutch properties. That's under construction now with the dirt. And then you've had down Mount Tahoma going south up into the into what I used to call the Thurston Highlands
yellow
project.
area.
And that has just been announced. We all read about that in the Nisqually Valley News. And I've on the current commercial that we're talking about here, I've had more interest in the last 6 months than any other time. But what it is that starting to get the word out about the availability coming of the water. And the thing that has kept commercial at bay has not been that somebody can't come out and put a commercial building up. That's not the problem. What's been the problem is the people that would like to invest with their commercial investments in Yelm also want to be able to look at rooftops. And the water restrictions have been just a real damper, and that's about to be removed. And for that reason alone, I think you're just about ready to see a major boom in the return of the city's growth and the national economy, getting the virus hopefully under control more. We're going to see a real pent-up demand of growth and the accompanying commercial requirements of growth. And then Yelm is in an excellent position to take advantage of that opportunity to become a real first class, not that they aren't now, but a really first class growth area for the entire region. I think Tammy and I spend part of our lives promoting Yelm, as we should. Tammy's a good promoter, by the way. She does real good when we have inquiries come in. She's just a wonderful person to have in that position.
Thank you, Mike. With that, I'm going to say that I think there might be some other members of our audience that would like to chat. Thanks,
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Any other question now or later, I'd be happy to answer or try.
I have Joe Gazzetti that I'll allow to talk.
Oh, okay.
Joe, if you have some comments, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll be able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Tammy, good seeing you again. I want to say thanks for giving me an opportunity to address the issues. If you don't mind, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background. My parents were farmers. They went out to Yelm to get further out. They had a farm in Puyallup, They purchased 135 acres there. 100 was all connected, and then the other 35 was across the street. I think they bought it about 60 years ago. My father passed away last year, and one of the things that we tried to do, I've managed his business affairs for probably the last 15 years. I worked on the bypass highway with the take of land there with the Department of Transportation, and it was, although he didn't want to see the land cut up, it was, it was exciting to see the bypass highway go in. We've followed development in Yelm for many, many years. We were extremely vocal back in the day when they built the additional high school. And so I've grown up in Tacoma, but have spent a fair amount of time with that property through my parents. They gifted it to me. You'll see the title of Salto, SOLTO Properties LLC. I formed an LLC because fortunately my father left us many, many properties scattered throughout Pierce and Thurston County. One of the things that we've dealt with over the years on the Yelm property, like everyone else, is we went through some of the rezoning that took place several years ago, which was exciting to get some of that zoned in. The 210s that we're talking about now, the difficulty that we see as the landholder or owner is that we've tried for many years, once it went commercial, we've tried many years to try and find a way to market the property. We're not developers. We're looking for a developer to come in and do something with the property. The difficulty's been is that under the current zoning, it requires retail. We don't feel, nor have we through any discussions with any interested parties, that retail will do well by pulling off of the main drag and driving that far off of the main drag for the use of retail. So what my goal is with the property is that I started out immediately in trying to actively market the property. We do want to find a developer that can come in and develop it. I'm not being critical of everything I've heard. I appreciate being able to listen into your guys' thoughts so I understand, a little more about what Yelm would like to see or wants to plan. John, you mentioned that commercial brings in a higher tax value, but if the property isn't developed, it's not bringing in much of anything. And we feel strongly that if we could get it rezoned to R16 would be ideal. We would love to go in there and actively and strongly market that property to see if we can't get it to a productive piece of property. We still, 40 acres was developed, I forget, 25, 30 years ago, but we still have 78 acres after the bypass took 17 acres. And long term, we would like to see all of that developed when it best fits the planning department's desires and what its best use is. Right now, with agricultural rural, it doesn't make sense for us to do much with that property, but we've got some young people in the family that'll, they've got a lot of years to wait it out and see what they can do with it. But we would really like to request that those two 10-acre parcels together come out of the commercial status, because we just are not confident that we can do much with it. We've been turned down by anyone that's come out and looked at the property. The property is, as you mentioned, Tammy, it's level, it's dry, it's a great piece of ground. The improvements are out on the street. There's a lot that the property has going for it, but with this request of retail, we're really discouraged on our ability to do much with that property. It just runs the cost up. And I've had a lot of experiences down here in Tacoma. I live in a mixed use building. We've got a lot of it's a requirement on all your commercial buildings to have retail on the bottom floor. We've gone in for variances to try, and almost everything's converted to offices with variances because of the lack of success at trying to get that sent out for retail, and it's just the lack of visibility. So that's really the reason that I requested to be able to speak to that. we think we can, with proper zoning, we think we can get the property developed with a nice development that would be a good revenue producer for Yelm, and it would help us market that property. I did, Tammy, I think I talked to you about a little over a year ago, and tried to find out what your thoughts were. What would you guys like to see in Yelm? What is it you'd like to see on this property? I said, hey, I'll go in open eyes. Let's give it another try. I did meet Mike Avila, and Mike has got a lot of experience in retail, as you guys probably know the name. He's got retail there in Yelm and has had experience with it. So Mike and I sat down and said, what can we do with this property? How willing are you to work with somebody? And I'm a pretty easygoing guy. We're not, we have the financial wherewithal to sit on this for decades, but we certainly don't have the desire to do that. So we'd really like some consideration to see that thing rezoned, and we'd like to get into this multi-purpose, or excuse me, mixed, higher impact, more houses or apartments. You know, I listened to what Mike had to say about this, and I agree. We knew Hutch back in the day, and you know, all the ins and outs. My dad nearly bought the property, but Hutch changed his mind at the last minute, or we probably would be doing something with that across the street. I've got a lot of commercial property here in Tacoma. I've got properties out at Frederickson, and so we've grown up with this, but we are not developers. Our job is to go find the best person for the job to get the maximum value and use out of the property. And that's where we're at with this whole thing. So I do appreciate the opportunity. I'd love to have Mike Avila. I think he's on the queue, or he was earlier, to maybe address some of these things. He and I have spent a lot of time talking about how much work and effort we continue to put into that 20 acres. It was listed with him for the last year, and the listing was up. And I told Mike that, you know, we have been turned down in every way. I don't like a stale listing to sit out there forever. And so we said, let's kind of regroup. Now, I unfortunately had about 15-minute notice that this Zoom was taking place tonight and didn't want to miss the opportunity. So I'm not real well prepared, but we certainly have had a lot of discussions about what to do with this 20-acre parcel. So if you don't mind, I would ask, unless anyone has any questions, that Mike eventually be able to speak to it as well.
Tammy, what you're then looking at doing, instead of being the 3 10-acre lots, we're looking at 4 10-acre lots. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be 40 acres of commercial.
Okay. Do you need to rewrite this document to make that change?
I would try to put all the information that we've heard so far today in writing, and respond with whether we want to continue with this option, look at changing the options based on what we've heard today, and bring that forward.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see that. To me, it's a no-brainer. I don't think commercial zoning of those properties is valid in this day and age. I too have started buying stuff online that I never did before. Of course, I got a daughter that helps me do that, but that's the way it's going to be, I think, you know. So to me, the question is now, do we go to what is that, R16, is it, Tammy, and then our residential, straight residential, or a combination of residential and commercial, or retail, I guess it's called.
Well,
That's
what I would
I'm thinking.
what I would suggest is, if Mike Avila is still with us, to allow him to speak on, he's very versed in his real estate experience. And then once Mike is done, what I can do is take the information that we've heard, pull it together, and provide rezone 2A and look at what the options are and look at the difference between R6 and R16. But I do see that Mike Avila is with us, and do you want to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Tammy. And thanks to the panel, and thanks, Joe, for, helping me in Yelm, or giving me some business anyway. I agree with everything Mike Edwards said. And just to let the panel know some of my background in Yelm, Tammy knows, we developed where the AutoZone, the Creek Street Plaza, where Starbucks and AutoZone and Anytime Fitness and all that is. So we understand retail really well. We go to all the Vegas shows every year, and even into some of the European shows, and we've tried to drag people to Yelm since 2005 and 6. We also were part of the development, the mixed use development that Tammy mentioned, the one where Tustin Apartments is located. So we built a 165 unit apartment complex, built the building out front with Rick Christensen for the liquor store and the mariachi. And we've been marketing the frontage on Creek Street since, I don't know, 2012 or whatever it is, huh, Tammy? And we do have a meeting tomorrow for a specific use, but it's been, we really tried to do medical, but what I see with Yelm is on the retail front, if you look at your 2005 economic study, the 100,000 people in the secondary trade area mainly are to the east side of Yelm, or going out toward Graham, Eatonville, Bald Hills. If you try and absorb the people outside of Yelm going toward Lacey, a lot of those folks go to Lacey and shop in Lacey because you have Costco and Home Depot and a lot more services. So in regards to the Gazzetti property in particular, I was just out there today showing it. We have a specific developer that'd love to build apartments or townhomes, high density residential. And it is, 400 plus feet, I think, off Yelm Avenue. We have zero luck with any retailers. And now, especially with COVID, the office industry has pretty much died out. I think you're going to see a lot of us with apartments add some office component in the clubhouse of some sort for the people that can't work out of their, in their kitchen or in their bedroom. Like all you are doing right now, they could go down to the rec center and take a little cube and still do their job for a few hours and then go back up to their house. And so I think you're going to see that type of thing happening. Big box stores, we'll see. I totally agree with Mike. Working the industrial side in Frederickson and Centralia and Lacey, it's booming right now. We've never had the kind of activity, but it's not manufacturing. It's all e-commerce warehousing, fulfillment centers, and distribution warehousing. So the buildings have become bigger. Instead of 40,000 square feet with a bunch of yard space and people welding and grinding, like Joe Gazzetti, who owned a door shop. We're seeing 500 and 800,000 square foot buildings just packed full of goods. Maybe some kind of assembly component aligned with it. Ashley Furniture is going out in Frederickson. They're doing 350,000 square feet of assembly and then 750,000 feet of warehouse distribution. So all of you that are buying at home, you're not going out to the store anymore, and it's being delivered to your doorstep. So everything's changing as far as how the jobs are. So if you want to talk about rooftops equal retail, if you have enough people, then the retail shows up. So all the retail trades look at your demographics. And then we've always preached Yelm had this secondary trade area. It's mainly been for fast food, QSR. And they do really well because there's a lot of commuter traffic. As far as property tax, I can let you know the Tustin Apartments, the taxes on Tustin are around $139,000 a year. The taxes on Creek Street Plaza are about I think they're 85, 90,000 a year. And the taxes on the 20 acres that Joe Gazzetti's family has today is $9,600 a year. So as far as the tax base, I think both Edwards and Gazzetti's properties, if rezoned, could be developed fairly quickly. I think there's a high demand for residential in Yelm. It's a bedroom town now that's surrounded by employment centers every direction you go. Whether it's Centralia, Chehalis, Lacey DuPont, the base, or Frederickson, Tacoma. And I'm happy to answer any questions in case I forgot anything. But we look at market demand, and that's what I've been talking to Joe about is, you know, the demand for your property is multifamily today. It's not retail or office, and you'd sit there for decades trying to do retail or office on that property.
Thank you very much, Mike. I think you hit the nail on the head. Tammy, do you have anything?
No, thank you, Mike, for that information. Like I said, we've been presented some information today where the commission would like to explore a couple other alternatives. I would like to pull that together, and while we have the big analysis here, I can narrow that down and go into some specific and, you know, impacts based on R6 and R16, which is our high density. And since we kind of know that residential does fall within the goals and policies of the GMA and our comp plan, now let's look at the details of the amount of commercial that we might be losing, the opportunity for commercial land, and based on the information we were given today, what that residential might look like. And I will also include taxes, Carlos, both what the property tax difference and the B&O tax possibilities could be.
Thank you, Tammy.
Good.
I really appreciate the excellent presentations by Mike Edwards, Joe Gazzetti, and Mike Avella.
And Tammy.
Okay, it's with a name like mine, I might ruin everybody else's. So basically, Tammy, you will be looking at the changes that have been suggested to us relative to the 4 lots, so a total of 40 acres. Is that correct?
That's correct. And what I might ask you, and Jerry, this is your fault because you said put some of the work back on you guys. While I can dig into some of the data and I can pull some facts and figures, if you could take the next few weeks as we're planning for the next meeting to really kind of seriously think about what this looks like. If you go on geodata and bring up an aerial photo, you can see the development that's there. You can see how far it is from the main road. Try to envision what you think it would look like and what impacts we might not be thinking about if it were to develop as high density. And, you know, we have apartments coming on. Do we need more apartments? Could we look at offering other ways to meet the density as opposed to apartments? Could we require, you know, that mixed housing that we've been trying to push? There's a lot of opportunity there, but if you take the time to kind of look at that area photo to see how it might play out, and also we'll look into a little more detail on e-commerce and what we don't want to do. Forgive me, my audience that's in attendance. What we don't want to do is we don't want to jump the gun and think that retail is no longer there. We absolutely need to provide for and retain that and keep that in our thoughts. So that's where I would look to you to really give it a good, thorough review as we're going into this and look at it again next meeting.
Mike Edwards has raised his hand. I think he has something he would like to add.
Mike, do you have anything you'd like to add?
You're muted, Mike.
Evidently not. Pardon me?
He's muted. I don't know if he knows that.
Okay. And John, John Graver, would
There he
you
goes.
be interested in help me out with that?
Sure, I'm delighted to.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Mike is with us now.
I was
Okay,
just gonna
Mike.
say, the Gazzetti family's been around for a long time. I've never met them firsthand. I have to give you an idea how long I've been around, and John Graver, I used to land my airplane on the Gazzetti property back there where the housing is right now, years ago. Do you remember that, Mr. Gazzetti? Anyway, there was a landing strip back there. But anyway, I wanted to thank the group. I've listened in. You didn't allow me in on the pictures today, but I listened in. Everybody had hit it right on the nail, and I think the committee's right on. And I really appreciate this committee taking the time and consideration, and we'll look forward to continue to work with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I don't know if I'm unmuted.
Joe,
Joe,
you're on, Joe.
yeah, I just wanted to say I was excited because actually because of that strip, I decided to get my pilot's license and had this dream of landing on this property. And then my dad decided to bust it in half by selling that 40 acres in the center. So I can relate to that. But anyway, I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to speak. It's nice to put some faces with some names. I'm not just saying it. We've always liked Yelm. I've had a business down in the Port of Tacoma for the last 50 years, so we never had the ability to look at moving that far from home. But anyway, I just want to final by saying I do appreciate it. And Tammy, I appreciate the time you've given me in the couple of times that we've either gotten together and seen each other in person. So appreciate it. Thanks.
We're all lucky to have Tammy.
For sure.
One of the
Making me
things I
blush.
noticed was one of my neighbors built a commercial building in Rainier, or not Rainier, in Roy, on the other side of the railroad tracks. And that property now is apartments because it just literally flopped. So location is everything.
Yeah.
And I think some good things have been put together today by our developers and that. So, Tammy, should we go on to another subject? Or what do you need us to do?
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody, our audience, property owners in the commission for all the information we have for the rezone request. So with that, I have my marching orders to go put my stuff together for next month. And Jerry, you are on agenda item number 8, subcommittee reports.
Okay. And do you have anything from the Parks Department? I mean, yeah, Parks.
Well, from Parks, I can tell you that we have, that the dog park has been purchased. That is the land for it. It's mainly land to be able to allow access and physical access for the build out of the water reclamation facility rebuild. But there's enough there for the dog park. And the approach that we're going to take is they're going to work with St. Martin's. There's an engineering school there that they require senior projects. And the senior projects are significant projects, like being able to do the design for a dog park. So that's one of the things that's being done. We're also looking at using St. Martin's for the design and work on the Veterans Memorial. But Jerry, you may have heard more about that. That's the
Yeah,
other.
we have a meeting coming up for that on Friday.
Okay, so those are the two main items. Still pending is the build out of the trail. And I have not yet heard from what might have happened at the state legislature in terms of the budget work. So still waiting to hear about that. That's all I've got.
Any questions? John, can you tell us anything about Hug a Tree? John Graber.
About the Hug a Tree. You know, we haven't met in quite some time. We had almost like a crash in the amount of people that were in the group, and I think we're down to 2. And so I'm hoping that we might. I mean, I'm trying to grab them from my office. You know, you know what I mean? I'm trying to grab people to come in because it's really easy to do with 2 people because there's, you know, it's either it's all in favor or there's nothing happening, you know. So, but you know, we just haven't really had the time to get together. But I'm hoping, you know, once this COVID is done, then maybe we can do more of that, or, you know, once things settle down in the city a little bit more, we might do a couple of Zooms, but nothing right now.
Okay, thank you. Any other committee, subcommittee or committee reports? Hearing none. Good of the order. If any of you are disabled vets, you go to the VA to get your shots. They're taking appointments for them.
Good. That's great.
Any, Carlos, do you have anything you'd like to share?
No, sir. I'm a vet, but not disabled, thank God.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Okay, John, do you have anything else? Okay, Ann, do you have anything?
No, just, I know that it was in the paper about the community garden. And I'm not up to speed on all the work that's being done there, but I saw that there was some really, really good work that's happened. And so that's just something to notice. If you go down to City Park, check out what's being done with the community garden there.
Okay, thank you. Bob Howard, do you have anything?
Not at the moment.
Okay, Floyd, do you have anything? Floyd, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, no, I'm good, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for the effort.
Okay. And I think I've got everybody. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would move that we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for attending today. And Tammy, or I sent you a note of something I would like to get. Just something simple.
Okay.
So I guess we gave a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Everybody have a good day. Be safe.